For more, let's bring in immigration law expert Frank Symphorien-Saavedra. So, Frank, President Trump is threatening to invoke the Insurrection Act. What would that mean for the people of Minnesota?
Well, it would mean that we are unleashing a military force in United States, streets. It could potentially turn into a situation where we're looking like Afghanistan or Iraq, where you have people, military personnel that are used to active combat, eliminating threats immediately with no lesser or proportional force. But we will probably see more and more instances, as we've seen in Minneapolis, where excessive force arguably is being used among our communities and among civilians.
So we've been seeing a lot of instances of U.S. citizens being detained by ICE. So what rights do U.S. citizens have now? And what about permanent residents?
So, U.S. citizens and permanent residents, they have the right to remain in the country. They have the right to live peacefully. If obviously there's some of the controversy involves, immigration, U.S. citizens or permanent residents, perhaps, in impact or interfering in federal investigations or federal lawful processes. At the same time, federal immigration officials, really, the scope of their duties is to enforce immigration laws. And so if you're a United States citizen, the reality is that you are essentially outside of their jurisdiction or outside of their scope of work. So it should be very limited involvement with U.S. citizens for federal immigration authority, except outside of our borders, because otherwise it should be the FBI and local law enforcement that are dealing with U.S. citizens. Permanent residents, it's a little bit broader, it's a little bit more. But at the same time, they're allowed to remain in the country and peacefully reside. And so unless there's some scope of that they're entering the nation's borders or there's some sort of crime that renders them subject to removal from the country because of immigration violations, for the most part, permanent residents have all the rights and to remain and live peacefully, just as U.S. citizens do.
All right, Frank, there's a lot to cover and a lot to follow as things change every day. Appreciate your legal insight.